The little milk at the bottom of the bottle is mixed with water until the bottle is full. This is the family's drink for the day, the father said to his young daughter.
I just had a steak. Thick, juicy steak. I'm absolutely full. I cannot eat another thing. Wanna give me a hand?
He left home on an empty stomach, leaving all the food for his daughter. Back then, being able to have a full meal was an unattainable aspiration for most people. The dock was crowded with people looking for work in the early morning. However, the foreman only needed 9 people, and Jim Braddock was not chosen. He could only leave disappointed. Who could have imagined that the once glorious boxing champion would fall so low? When Braddock returned home, he found his son sitting sadly in the corner. There was a large sausage on the table. Braddock didn't say anything and took his son to the store, returning the sausage to the owner. On the way back, his son told him that his friend had been sent away because his parents couldn't afford to take care of him. Braddock was silent for a long time, squatting down to assure his son that he would take care of them. But making money was not easy in those days. Fortunately, Braddock's manager, Joe Gould, arranged a boxing match for him. Win or lose, he would receive $50. Before the fight, Gould discovered that Braddock had concealed his injury and became furious. But there was no turning back. Due to the broken bone in his hand, the fight was extremely difficult. Faced with the dissatisfaction of the audience, Braddock extended his right fist and accidentally hit his opponent's head. Although he endured the intense pain, he won the match by a narrow margin. However, he not only didn't receive the prize money, but his boxing license was also revoked by the association. Losing his job meant that the gas and electricity in his home would be cut off. His wife said they could only send the children to relatives. Braddock immediately refused because he had promised his son that he would never send them away. He took out shoe polish to have his wife apply it to the plaster on his hand. This way, no one would notice his injured right hand, and he could still try his luck at the dock. A few days later, the electrician cut off their electricity because they had been 4 months behind on their bill. If they didn't pay, even the electrician would be fired. Without electricity, they could only use candles. Unable to keep warm, they resorted to dismantling fences and burning them for heat. But even so, their children still fell ill. As a mother, she couldn't bear to see her children suffer with her. In despair, the wife sent the children to relatives' homes. When Braddock returned, they had an argument, and he stormed out. The wife thought Braddock was leaving her, but in reality, he had let go of his pride and went to the relief office. There, he received $19 in aid, but it still wasn't enough to pay the bills. In the end, he went to the Luxurious Boxing Association and begged his former bosses and colleagues to give him some money to help him through the tough times. Some people sympathized with Braddock and helped him, but others looked at him with cold eyes. Finally, he approached Gould, tears streaming down his face.
Jesus Christ, Jim. How short are you?
With Gould's help, Braddock returned home with his children. Braddock's family barely made it through the harsh winter. One day, Gould found him and said he had found a warm-up match for him against the world's second-ranked boxer. Whether he won or lost, he would receive $250. And without a doubt, this sum of money was a lifeline for Braddock's family. On the day of the match, Gould heard Braddock's stomach growling. When he asked, he found out that Braddock hadn't even been able to get relief soup. How could he fight after going hungry all day? Gould quickly brought him a beef stew. Braddock reached out to eat, but Gould was afraid he would get the bandages dirty and said he would find a spoon for him. Looking at the full bowl of stew, Braddock couldn't help but lean over the table and start devouring it. The reporter happened to witness this dog-like eating behavior and couldn't believe it. The once invincible legend of the boxing world had gone hungry all day before the match. Before he could take a few bites, the staff asked Braddock to go on stage. Braddock's return excited the audience, but no one in the crowd believed he could win against the world's second-ranked boxer. After all, his opponent was so tall and strong. As soon as the match started, the second-ranked boxer launched a fierce attack. His long reach kept Braddock on the defensive, unable to fight back. One heavy blow from his opponent knocked Braddock to the ground. Originally, if he stayed down, he could easily earn $250. But for some reason, Braddock started laughing. He struggled to stand up. Life's hardships couldn't defeat him, so what were a few punches? Since his opponent had long arms and legs, Braddock decided to close the distance and fight up close. With the nickname the Bulldog, he grew more excited as the fight went on. Since enduring hits was his strength, he allowed his opponent to launch a relentless attack. He just needed to seize the opportunity and land a heavy blow. His brilliant counterattack ignited the entire crowd. Even Gould couldn't believe it and excitedly cheered. He didn't know that Braddock had turned his previous weakness into a strength through his work at the docks. Now, his injured right hand had become strong and powerful. As his opponent fell to the ground and couldn't get up, Braddock defeated the world's second-ranked boxer. This once humiliated boxer created a miracle with his injured right hand. After the match, he finished a bowl of stew. A large number of reporters swarmed in, and Braddock became famous overnight. When Braddock returned home, he pretended to be dejected, bowing his head. His family wanted to encourage him, but they finally had a satisfying meal that day.
I won.
The next day, Braddock returned to the docks, and it seemed that his luck had changed for the better as the foreman chose him right away. Braddock was about to start working when the foreman suddenly called him over. It turned out that the foreman had learned about Braddock from the newspaper and asked him why he came back to work. Braddock said that after paying off his debts with the $250, he only had $5 left. The foreman laughed and didn't say much, just letting him get to work. Not long after, Gould arranged another boxing match for Braddock and even advanced a large sum of money. But his wife wasn't happy and was afraid Braddock would get hurt again, so she went to Gould's house to complain about why he had disrupted their peaceful life. But when Gould opened the door, his wife was stunned. It turned out that Gould had sold everything in their house just to help Braddock make a comeback. Gould found the club owner and secured more opportunities for Braddock to fight. Braddock finally began systematic training, becoming even more diligent than before. In the ring, his punches were swift and fierce. His ability to withstand hits improved the most because he couldn't let his family go hungry or suffer from cold. He was like a bulldog in the ring, biting down on his opponents. Once he saw an opportunity, he would knock them out with one punch. However, relying solely on counterattacks by enduring hits would always encounter stronger opponents. When facing tall and strong boxers, Braddock had a hard time. His opponent only targeted his ribs, and in the end, one heavy blow broke Braddock's ribs. The severe pain of a broken bone forced Braddock to hold onto his opponent. The referee separated them. During halftime, Gould made Braddock stand in the corner and not sit down. By doing so, the opponent would see that he didn't sit down and would be filled with fear. Sure enough, the opponent was scared. In the next round, the opponent continued to aggressively attack Braddock's ribs. Although he pretended to be fierce, he couldn't withstand it. The opponent punched Braddock in the face, knocking out his mouthguard. But in that moment, images of starving and freezing children constantly flashed through Braddock's mind. He thought of them only being able to eat relief soup every day, his wife with a worried expression, and the milk that had to be diluted to be drinkable. Braddock snapped back to reality and looked at his strong opponent across from him. He suddenly burst out laughing. Perhaps it was a mocking laugh at the mercilessness of fate. Compared to the suffering he had endured before, these injuries were nothing, but the opponent was completely scared by Braddock. He had never seen someone so fearless, and he began to fear, retreating like a child. Braddock took advantage of the situation and pursued. Every punch released years of frustration, and in the end, the young fighter who had been as strong as a bull was completely defeated by Braddock. The next day, with a swollen and bruised face, Braddock went to the relief center, where everyone looked at him curiously, but he didn't come to collect money. He came to return the money he had previously received as relief. Braddock's story was widely reported, and in this era of widespread despair, he became a hero in the hearts of ordinary people. However, Braddock's next opponent was Max Baer, the world's #1 heavyweight champion. He was known for his fierce and ruthless fighting style and had already killed 2 opponents in the ring. After autopsying those opponents' bodies, it was found that their brains had been forcibly shattered, and their deaths were gruesome. The club owner wanted to convince Braddock to give up, but Braddock replied,
How many guys died the other night, living in cardboard shacks trying to save on rent money? Guys who were just trying to feed their family. Because men like you have not yet quite figured out a way to make money out of watching that guy die. In my profession, and it's my profession.
The club owner had no words to say and could only arrange a reception for him with the heavyweight champion. The heavyweight champion, at a young age, had already enjoyed fame and fortune, always accompanied by 2 beautiful women, arrogant and full of pride. Braddock approached to greet him, but the heavyweight champion threatened him, saying that he would kill him in the ring.
You are far too pretty to be a widow. That's not nice, Max, not nice. No.
On second thought, maybe I can comfort you after he's gone.
Hey, I said shut your goddamn mouth, you punk!
This was a habit of the heavyweight champion, to intimidate his opponents and break their psychological defenses. Braddock, who had experienced countless fights, just laughed it off, but his wife was scared, afraid of losing her husband. When she saw the children playing boxing with Braddock, she got angry for the first time.
No boxing in the house!
Although she scolded the children, she was actually angry with her husband. She didn't understand why Braddock had to fight in such a dangerous match. Of course, she didn't know that Braddock had taken on the hopes of too many people. On the day of the match, the family members all had worried expressions, as if they were sending him off for the last time. This kind of atmosphere also made Braddock feel a bit heavy. The wife went to the church as usual to pray for her husband. However, when she entered, she found the place full of people who were also praying for Braddock. At that moment, the wife finally knew who her husband was fighting for. Before the match, Braddock was feeling restless, but then his wife came to him.
Maybe I understand some about having a fight. So you just remember who you are. You're the Bulldog of Bergen and the Pride of New Jersey. You're everybody's hope. And you're your kid's hero. And you are the champion of my heart, James J. Braddock.
With her encouragement, Braddock regained his confidence. When he stepped into the ring, the whole arena fell silent. Even the commentators intentionally lowered their voices as a sign of respect for him. It was a scene that had never been seen before. When the boxing champion came out of the locker room and saw this, his expression changed. The match officially began, and Braddock launched a fierce attack. However, the champion was taller and more powerful. He constantly held Braddock's head with his hand, mocking him like a child. This was his usual strategy, to provoke and disrupt his opponent's state of mind. But Braddock was not affected at all. His greatest strength was his flexible footwork, which allowed him to deliver powerful blows at close range. In the third round, the champion struck the rib that Braddock had previously injured. Braddock pretended to be relaxed, but in reality, he was in so much pain that he almost fainted.
You're looking great out there.
In the next round, Braddock stopped launching strong attacks and instead used his agile footwork to dodge two heavy punches from the champion. The whole crowd mocked the foolish champion. Furious and ashamed, the champion hit Braddock twice when the referee separated them. The champion ignored the crowd's disapproval and used various illegal tactics. Even during their struggle, he deliberately mentioned Braddock's wife and constantly insulted her with his words. The usually composed Braddock almost lost his composure. Luckily, Gould shouted from below the stage and brought Braddock back to reality. However, the champion had achieved his goal. Braddock's boxing technique was now in disarray.
Hey, he's nothing. Nobody. Guy has got...
In the next round, the champion's eyes were wide open with anger. It was clear that he wanted to win the match with one blow. He put all his strength into every punch he threw. Braddock was already dizzy and bleeding from his nose after being hit by two heavy punches. But Braddock did not fall. He carried the hopes of his family and all the defeated in his heart. The more Braddock fought, the fiercer he became. His powerful counterattacks landed on the champion's face, completely disorienting him. The psychological tactics planned before the match were useless. The champion was so angry that he cursed loudly. In the following rounds, Braddock stopped defending and continuously landed powerful punches on the champion's face. The champion's laughter turned into a bitter smile. He was forced into a corner and became desperate. Everyone shouted Braddock's name. It seemed like victory was within reach. The champion's strong body could no longer withstand the punishment. In his desperate situation, the champion hit Braddock's leg with a punch, causing a serious foul that angered the entire crowd. Gould angrily rushed into the ring, and the round was forced to end. Gould told Braddock to stay away from the champion in the final round. He had violated the rules multiple times, and as long as Braddock dragged the match to the end, he would win. However, once in the ring, Braddock did not back down at all. After all these years, he had never backed down. The two fighters continued to exchange blows, and the people outside the ring were nervous to the extreme. They all held their breath and prayed for Braddock. Even the wife, who had never dared to listen to the radio, came to the radio. Braddock's injured rib took many punches. At that moment, the champion lifted Braddock's chin and delivered a powerful blow that sent Braddock flying. Everyone stood up, and Braddock's vision became blurry. As he looked at the champion who was getting closer and closer, He suddenly remembered the footage he had seen before. It was at moments like this that the champion would kill his opponent. The next punch would definitely kill him. In a daze, the figures of his family members kept flashing by.